fires and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Everyone said an agreement with North Korea to achieve a nuclear-free Korean peninsula was impossible. Yet, it appears President Trump has succeeded in achieving an agreement. Will the president ride this diplomatic success toward achieving the ultimate deal, an agreement in the Middle East? That appears to be the plan. Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt are heading to the Middle East next week in an effort to push President Trump's peace plan forward. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's so interesting what is going on right now. You're actually not going to believe it. It's amazing. But, as I was watching President Trump with all of his fabulous negotiation abilities in Singapore, I was all the time keeping in mind what the Bible prophesies. Because we can think some things are important in world events that may end up being rather inconsequential. But then you look at the prophecies of the Bible and you know where the major events are going to be. We've got two major prophetic fulfillments coming straight at us. The only question is, how soon? We've got a war that's going to be a world war. It's going to kill 1/3 of mankind. I don't like to talk about it. I know you probably don't like to talk about it. But we will be foolish to ignore it because it is going to happen. It's going to happen. Then we have a Middle East peace agreement that will be the most pivotal signpost in the last 2,000 years. When that agreement is signed, you can mark your calendar, 7 years to Armageddon. Well, as I watched President Trump negotiating with North Korea over the last couple of days, I thought, where is this headed? Is this going to be a trigger for World War III? Is it going to go sour and things are going to go bad? And then the United States is going to have to try to enforce the denuclearation of the Korean peninsula using military power? Or is he going to get an agreement and then will he ride this diplomatic success into an agreement in the Middle East? That's how things work sometimes. Already the talk is out there that some people are ready to nominate President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize for what has just happened in Singapore this week. Well, as I was watching this whole thing, I noticed a few side stories in the news. One of them was that David Friedman, our ambassador to Israel from the United States, was in Washington, D.C., and he's talking with senior members of the Trump administration. I thought, what is Friedman doing there? And I was sure he was talking to Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt about the possibility of moving the peace process forward, because already there had been reports out that after Ramadan was over, which is over tomorrow, June the 14th, that Trump was going to release his peace plan. Now, that was reports, those aren't confirmed yet. Nevertheless, all of a sudden, Friedman shows up in Washington, D.C., and then we get the announcement today from several sources that Kushner and Greenblatt are on their way to the Middle East next week, and they're going to be talking to Saudi Arabia, they're going to be talking to Egypt, they're going to be talking to Israel, and if the Palestinians should want to talk to them, they're open to it. They're not pursuing it, but if the signals are sent, well, we may be ready to talk. We're open to it. Now, what's this all about? I just do not want to fail you by not mentioning these two huge prophetic fulfillments that you can count on. They are going to happen. And that's where we are right now. Let me take you now to an article that just appeared in the Jerusalem Post on the 10th of this month, just 3 days or so ago. The article is entitled Greenblatt, After 4 decades of Arakat, Palestinians deserve better. Now, Arakat has been the chief negotiator for the Palestinians for 30 or 40 years. Results? Zero. Zilch. Here's what the article had to say. It is time for the Palestinians to be served by leaders other than Saeb Erekat, who for the last 40 years has voiced the same talking points and failed to deliver anything close to what the Palestinians want, U.S. Middle East negotiator Jason Greenblatt said. Now, Jason Greenblatt has used a very soft approach over the last, well, ever since he came into office, which was, he began this effort in the Middle East back February 1st of 2017. So here we are, we're 15, 16 months in. Now we're going to see what else Greenblatt had to say in this article, because it appears that the Trump administration is ready to throw the old guard and the Palestinians overboard and get new blood in. All this for a peace deal that's going to trigger the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon. We live in exciting times, don't we? We'll be back in just a moment. Now, before we continue, I want to make sure you know who Jason Greenblatt is. Jason Greenblatt has been President Trump's personal attorney for the last 20 years, one of his very most trusted aides. He works closely with Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law. They've been working on this peace deal since February, the 1st of February of 2017. They thought they pretty well had a deal put together, but when President Trump announced the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem and the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the Palestinians backed off, and they've not been able to talk to them since. That was December the 6th of 2017. So here we are. They've backed off. There's been no communication, and yet Greenblatt and Kushner have been preparing this document. Now, the rumor is they're getting ready to release it, and that this trip that they're getting ready to make to Israel next week will be to shore up the loose ends, last-minute consultation with Saudi Arabia, with Egypt, with Israel concerning when they should do it. Let's go back to the article written by Jason Greenblatt. Now, he's been playing nice guy for all this time, but now that it appears he's taking the gloves off a little bit, and part of it is in response to Erekat's snarky article that he put out last month. Okay, here we go. Dr. Erekat, we have heard your voice for decades, and it has not achieved anything close to Palestinian aspirations or anything close to a comprehensive peace agreement, he wrote. Now, is he making a lot of sense? 40 years, no agreement? Maybe it is time for a change. Greenblatt continues. Other Palestinian perspectives might help us finally achieve a comprehensive peace agreement where Palestinian and Israeli lives can be better. The time for leadership and responsibility is now. Now, let's pause a moment. Do you remember what Trump did while he was in Singapore? As talking to Kim Jong-un, he pulls out an iPad, and they had prepared a video of what North Korea could look like. And they had actors, they had everything there about what the United States would like to help North Korea do if they would forsake their nuclear weapons program. It was really appealing. And they not only had it in English, they had it in Korean. So it's a carrot and stick approach. If you do this, look what you could have. If you don't do this, look what you could lose. Well, that's sort of what's happening here. Greenblatt goes on to say the time for meeting after meeting of government officials repeating the same talking points is over. The Palestinian people want real action. So Greenblatt, he's siding with the Palestinians. They want real action, and they need honest, realistic, and decisive solutions. Greenblatt wrote that notions that Israel is going away, or that Jerusalem is not the country's capital, or that the United States is not a critical interlocutor for Middle East peace are all simply mirages. You're whistling in the graveyard. Those things are established fact, and there's not a thing you can do about it. Greenblatt went on to say, the reality is that there is an opportunity for peace at hand, and that President Trump and his administration are working to help facilitate a peace that will open up the future of the Palestinian people if they and their leadership have the courage to seize it, he concluded. Well, that's not all that's going on, because an article was published by Axios just yesterday, and it simply says there, this is a scoop, a news scoop, Kushner to visit Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia for peace plan talks. Here's the story. President Trump's Middle East peace team, senior advisor Jared Kushner and special envoy Jason Greenblatt, will travel to Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia next week to discuss the next stages of the peace effort and the crisis in Gaza, a senior U.S. official tells me. Now, Gaza is in crisis. I think I read that the average Gazan family only has electricity 2 to 4 hours per day. There's a water crisis. There's all kinds of problems because Israel has had to boycott Gaza because it's become a center for terrorism. Consequently, they can't allow building products to go in there because the Hamas just takes those concrete products and builds tunnels out of them to go into Israel that doesn't reach its ultimate goal. But now then, Greenblatt and Kushner are saying to the Palestinians, look what could happen. He goes on to say why it matters. The official said Kushner and Greenblatt want to discuss lingering questions they have as they finish drafting the peace plan, including the optimal time for launching it. You see the plot thickens here? It's interesting. They're saying, okay, when should we pull the trigger? We're ready to go. We want to make sure we hit it at the optimal time. They've already discussed after Ramadan, which is after tomorrow. So this could happen at any time, or they could delay another month or two, depending on what the different people they're dealing with say is the best thing to do. The U.S. official added the trip may include other stops as well, but does not include a meeting with Palestinian officials who are refusing to meet following Trump's decision to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. The peace team didn't ask for a meeting with the Palestinians for this trip. The Palestinian leadership will know Kushner and Greenblatt are in the region, and if the Palestinian leadership wants to meet, Kushner and Greenblatt are ready to meet. The administration wants to launch the plan when the circumstances are right, and Kushner and Greenblatt want to hear the parties' thoughts on that. The administration has not set a date yet for launching the plan. U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman is visiting Washington this week. The U.S. official stressed that contrary to several press reports, Friedman was not summoned to Washington to talk about the peace plan, but was there for regular meetings, whatever regular meetings means. Ambassador Friedman wanted to catch up with Kushner and Greenblatt before they head to the region, the U.S. official said. So he's supposedly not there to discuss the peace plan, but he wanted to catch up with Kushner and Greenblatt before they went, because everything is being coordinated together. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not time for us to be asleep at the wheel. Let me just pause a moment to say this to you. I believe that almost all of us are getting ready to see the world enter the final 7 years. This peace agreement signed. When we do that, are you ready? Am I ready? Because this 7 years is going to go like a blur. It's going to contain a peace deal between Palestinians and Israelis. It's going to mean the sharing of the Temple Mount between Muslims and Jews. It'll mean the building of Israel's temple. It will mean the resumption of animal sacrifices. It will mean the revealing of the Antichrist halfway through the 7 years. Think about it. Agreement signed. Temple started within a year or so. Temple completed. Animal sacrifices resumed at the 3.5 year mark. The Antichrist is revealed, his religious partner, the false prophet. Big move on toward one world religion. Big move on toward one world government. And many other factors that I won't go through right now. It is going to go like a blur. All right. Now I'm going to shift gears for just a moment. And I want to talk to you about the other big prophecy, World War III. This article comes from the Business Insider just today. NATO has put forces in Eastern Europe to counter Russia. Here's where its battle groups are located. Now, what's happening is Russia has irritated the international community by taking Crimea, just taking it, absorbing it, done deal, and then attempting to take the Ukraine. Really, Vladimir Putin would like to rebuild the Soviet Union. However, the people of Europe don't want that to happen, and especially those that were part of the old Soviet Union, such as the Baltic nations, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So now that all of them have become members in NATO, including Poland, which shares a big, big border with Russia, here's what the story is talking about, just an excerpt or two. In late May, Poland, which has a long-held interest in having U.S. troops there permanently, said it was willing to pay up to $2 billion per year to support their presence. The proposal was crafted by Poland's defense ministry, which did not consult with the president or the foreign ministry before sending it to the U.S. NATO is working on other initiatives to increase readiness and the ability of its forces to work together. Now let's pause a moment. A lot of people don't keep up with some things, and you may forget what NATO is all about. What happened was, after World War II, Russia and the Soviet Union, of course Russia was part of the Soviet Union at the time, they moved quickly to try to capture in peace what Adolf Hitler failed to get in war. So they gobbled up half of Europe. It was amazing. Built an Iron Curtain, built their big, big empire. So at that time, the West got together and formed what was called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And it was designed to join the powers of Western Europe together to stand against the aggressive advances of Eastern Europe. Well, NATO from then until now, since 1945-46, has been the bulwark of defense guarding against communism. Now, the threat sort of went away after the fall of the Berlin Wall, but it seems like it's coming back now, especially with Russia's militant behavior, taking Crimea, at least backing up the overthrow of the government in the Ukraine. So here's what's happening. NATO is now trying to beef up its defenses. Are we really ready to meet the Russian threat, especially with Russia moving into Syria, exercising a lot of influence over the Middle East? The article goes on to say, at a meeting of defense ministers earlier this month, the alliance approved the formation of 2 new commands, adding about 1,200 personnel to NATO's command structure. Now, add to that an article from Debka File, which just came out yesterday. Iranian-Syrian coalition force beefs up air defenses on border with Israel. All right, we've had the civil war in Syria the last 8 years. Under the cover of the civil war, Iran moved in to beef up the government of Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria. Russia moved in to help Iran. Now Iran who has been saying for years, we're going to wipe Israel off the map. Now they have used this cover to put their troops in Syria, which shares a border with Israel. Israel has said, we're not going to tolerate Iran staying in Syria. Yet you've got Russia here. So what if Israel moves against Iran? Will Russia get involved? Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the prophecy in your Bible that a war will emanate from the Euphrates River. That's where it will start, and it will kill 1/3 of mankind. Guess where the Euphrates River flows? Right down through Syria. And while I speak to you, Russia has troops, several bases in western Syria, and America has about 20 bases in eastern Syria. So you have the two nuclear superpowers based on either side of the Euphrates River. Russia on the western side, America on the eastern side. Now, I'm talking about this prophecy in the Bible that's going to happen. I'm not talking about something that could possibly happen. I'm talking about something that's going to happen. It's in the Bible. The prophecies always come to pass. Listen to what it says. The head of the Iranian-Syrian Hezbollah coalition force deployed on the Syrian Golan opposite IDF defense lines reported Tuesday that its air defense array along the Israeli border has been beefed up. So Iran is beefing up its air defenses because they're afraid Israel is going to attack. He cited S-22 batteries. Debka Files military sources say they have brought in Panzer S-1 missiles, which are effective against airplanes and drones, but also against ground-to-ground rockets, including cruise missiles. So now this is advancing. Now, I've got a lot more to say to you, but I'm afraid we're not going to have time. But let me just take just a moment to tell you that a lot of things are happening concerning homosexuality. The Bible says in the end times, as it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Lot lived in Sodom, from which we get the name sodomy, because the prominent sin of Sodom was homosexuality. Here's what this story from The Advocate, an official homosexual newspaper, says. It says that the Pentagon is withdrawing its support for LGBT Pride Month. You know, every month, every year, the Obama administration made a big deal about Pride Month. But now, and it was always June, now then the Pentagon is not supporting it. For the first time in 6 years, the Department of Defense did not release a memo marking LGBT Pride Month. The Pentagon also declined to send the high-ranking staffer to MC an unofficial Pride celebration thrown by a Department of Defense LGBT group, reports the Washington Post. The retreat of support is not a surprise, as the Trump administration has demonstrated animus toward LGBT people since the president's inauguration last year. The Defense Department, led by Secretary Jim Mattis, is also trying to put into effect Donald Trump's ban on transgender troops, which is currently tied up in the courts. The Defense Department officially acknowledged Pride Month starting in 2012, a year after President Obama signed a bill repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and paved the way for LGBT troops to serve openly. What's happening? Trump does not believe in same-sex marriage. He's moving to move us back as a nation to some sanity. I mean, we're the first nation to ever embrace same-sex marriage in all of human history. It's absolute insanity. Two men marrying together, a woman marrying a woman. It's insanity. It's not natural. It's not biblical. It's wrong. Well, now the Trump administration is moving it back. Ladies and gentlemen, keep praying for this president, because we are fighting for the future of the United States of America, and it looks like God's helping us.